And thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Clare, and I'll be your moderator for today's webcast, Looking Over the Edge, a hands-on look at real-world IoT connectivity. Today's webcast is presented by Derek Dippert from Vantron Technology and Kevin Holbrook from ThingWorx. Derek Dippert is the regional sales manager for Vantron and has been in the IoT and M2M space for more than 10 years. Prior to joining Vantron, Derek held several positions within Digi International, including product management, international sales, and application engineering. Derek also worked for Rabbit Semiconductor, which provided embedded networking products. In his current position, Derek is focused on providing full turnkey IoT and M2M solutions. Kevin Holbrook is a lifelong coder and has been implementing real-world IoT solutions for the last 8 years, first at Exida Corporation and now at ThingWorx. Through direct customer interaction, product development, hackathons, and speaking engagements, he has continued to drive customers to extract value from their IoT solutions. Kevin loves turning caffeine into code, designs into products, and products into solutions. Thank you, Derek and Kevin, both for joining us today. If you'd like to ask Derek and Kevin any questions during the webcast, please do so via the questions section of your GoToWebinar pane, and we'll address and answer them at the end. We'll also be sending out the webcast recording when it's made available. And now I'd like to hand it over to our presenters, Derek and Kevin.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. As Lauren mentioned, my name's Derek, and I represent Vantron Technologies. And really today's focus is going to be on how we create turnkey IoT solutions. We certainly hear IoT fairly, it's very much a commonplace right now, so we want to dig a little bit deeper today to really show you how you could start with a specific piece of hardware and ultimately get the goal of turning that those sensor data, minimal amounts of data, into something that's usable for you in an application. So really today's focus is a little bit of an overview of what Vantron does, but more specifically we'll get into how we did a specific use case for a customer and really shed some light on really how you can create that full turnkey solution here. So what we've done here at Vantron, we're actually based out of the Bay Area with headquarters out of China. So we certainly have a very good international scope as far as what we're doing on the hardware side, but certainly on the software integration services as well. But we're very focused on our partnerships, specifically on the hardware side. We work with Intel, Freescale, as well as TI. If you look at the key partnerships for the cellular carriers, we are Verizon certified as well as AT&T. So we'll talk a little more about our gateway products, which allow you to simply connect to either one of those networks with a full certification. So very quick to market products, very easy to use as well, but most importantly, able to connect to the ThingWorx platform, which you can see there on the left side. The ThingWorx platform is going to be a very integral part of our go-to-market strategy for IoT. It simply provides the platform for us to be able to get that data in a usable format, but most importantly, very quickly. Right? I mean, it's no reason to reinvent the wheel here. They have a terrific platform that really allows us to get proof of concepts almost in no time flat. So we'll describe a little bit more of that in a use case that we did for a specific customer. Another important piece here, as far as what you see with SAP and Salesforce, why we're including those, we're seeing that next evolution of the IoT world of actually getting actionable results from data. And that's where SAP and Salesforce come in, because as you know, a lot of customers out there are already using that. Some of you whether you like it or not, are certainly using Salesforce, but it has become a very integral part of our day-to-day activities, to where now that data from devices will integrate seamlessly into your CRM systems, whether it generates a customer service alert or actually creates a work order. These are all things where the evolution of the Internet of Things has certainly taken place, and will only pick up steam here on out. So I mentioned those two pieces because we will provide a lot of those hooks already with the ThingWorx platform, and then simply we'll do the system integration around something like that. So very complete picture here, from hardware to actually having connectivity all the way to the platform itself. So a very seamless transition all the way through, basically to get data to a point where it is extremely and highly valuable for either your customers or simply just doing analytics, right? There is a very strong relation between the hardware and software as far as what Vantron is focused on. So a little bit of a hardware background on Vantron. We're extremely diverse in the hardware world. We do very simplistic sensor boards all the way up to full turnkey PC solutions. So you can kind of get an idea as far as our scope and what we're able to do. But most importantly, we've been in the embedded space for the last 15 years. So we really have a focus there. We do a number of single board computers, modules, but most importantly, where we're seeing a lot of traction these days is in having a cellular certified gateway. The really nice thing about a gateway / router here is now I can take multiple protocols and transition or bridge them to, say, Zigbee, to LoRa, to just various wireless technologies. So think of Vantron as a aggregator of many different types of protocols in our gateways. And the fact, like I said before, that having AT&T and Verizon certifications really adds that level of connectivity options for you, to where now for remote locations, you no longer have to worry about just having Wi-Fi or Ethernet connectivity. You can expand that even more with cellular. The other really nice thing that we do is we actually do customize industrial tablets and HMI displays. We tend to find that a lot of our customers will like to use a off-the-shelf commercial tablet, but it's really not going to hold up in those ruggedized environments. So we do have an area of expertise of creating industrial tablets that have many different types of peripherals for you. So again, the complete picture of what Vantron is doing, think of us as very much a low power MCU sensor boards all the way up to very high power industrial turnkey PCs. So we have a lot of capability in between those. The one thing, as far as I mentioned earlier about the gateways, is the fact that now you have a complete ready-to-go solution. Your time to market on something like this is dramatically reduced versus, say, a modular or single board computer, where you actually have to design a carrier board, get certifications. All of the certifications are done for you in one box. So it becomes a very compelling, not only time to market consideration, but also a price as far as what it would take to develop all of this on your own. So it really makes it very nice in terms of what we do, of having high-level functionality with Intel, all the way down, as I mentioned, to very low-power MCUs like TI or even the M4. So it is very much application-specific. And the reason why I say that, take for example, if I just want to monitor a thing out in the field, say I'm monitoring, say, a skid steer or some type of small tractor that doesn't move very often. But you don't want to have a very high-powered gateway in the field, but I need to be able to run cellular. I need to be able to report GPS coordinates. So that's really where you would find a very low-power type of gateway, where that it can take incoming signals and actually send those out, but then eventually go back to sleep. Where if you have a high-powered running a Intel Bay Trail, for example, processor, this is going to be very high-power, always-on type of situation, where you're going to have some type of user interface as part of this as well. So fully capable VGA, HDMI outputs, but again, very application-specific. Really what I'm trying to impress on this slide is that you can go from a very low-power all the way to a very high-power type of gateway solution with us. The other side of that's really nice is we have a really big team of software engineers. So we're highly focused on Android, Linux, Windows, IDP, which is Wind River, Intel, part of that as well as our own routing software, which is called Vantron XOS. So full capability on any one of those software platforms for you. So if there need to be customized drivers, we have that capability in-house as well. Okay, so I wanted to discuss a little bit of, now that you have kind of an idea of what we're doing on the hardware. And again, the hardware is really going to drive all these applications. You really can't get data to a certain point without having some type of physical hardware there. Similar to, where we look at cell phones, right? I mean, the app is only as good as the cell phone that it runs on. So that hardware piece becomes very critical, and that's where we're finding a lot of customized opportunities. So I'll explain that a little bit more in detail as far as what we're able to do for you. But the gateway certainly is a great starting point. So it allows you to prove that concept, But if you look at what we're doing on this particular slide here, what we're able to do is take many different sensors and aggregate that all into one central point, which is going to be on the gateway side. Whether I'm in an industrial environment, whether I'm, say, in a commercial store, retail store, all of this data comes to some point, right? And that basically, that data is going to be then processed at the gateway level and then sent up to a server location. The other part that Vantron really focuses on is actually storing that data for customers, actually having a physical device which will store data for you as well. For those customers that necessarily don't always want to be up on the cloud, they want to control the data, we actually have an in-premise or on-premise server type system which runs the ThingWorx platform for you as well. So again, that really reiterates kind of the value of ThingWorx here, is that not only can I run the ThingWorx agent on my gateway, but then I can actually have a platform running where I don't even have to then worry about hosting this any longer. Vantron has that capability for customers. And this is really that last step where I think it becomes very confusing in the IoT space. Well, once I get the data to a point, what do I do with it? How do I get it to the cloud? And the hosting really opens up a lot of other discussions which become very critical, because again, that is something you have to plan for when it comes to how much data is going in, the database, and so forth. To Vantron, it really does not matter to us, right? Because we're providing you a server that will allow you then to store all that data. Yes, there'll be some physical limitation in terms of the size, but you can always add additional servers once you begin to really scale this out. So it allows you to have a very flexible platform, because ThingWorx, again, is the piece that's running on the server here, and allows me then to store all that as a database, so I can have many devices putting that all in there. And the great part about it now is I can have a usable application, whether it's web-based, whether it's on an application on a phone. All of that now becomes recognizable, or at least readable in a web-type format or even an application format. So again, you look at the full connectivity option now, because now it's visual. The data is actually doing something deterministic at the site, because you're running the ThingWorx agent with whatever analytics you're building into there. But then you have the data storage part of it as well, where it's then actually putting the data to a certain point, and now I can view that data, whether it's an app or a web-based. This is an important piece, because I think, again, it really just reiterates the fact that we have a complete solution for you, all the way to the very sensor level type products, and be able to aggregate that, and then actually using that data in a specific format. So we can explain a little more about the application, and I'll actually show you that in real time. So again, the big part of where we come in our main competitive advantage, is the fact that we're finding that customers really, there's no one standard product that fits everybody, and that's the difficulty in IoT, is everybody has different unique needs. I mean, sure, we can really aggregate a lot of different protocols on the gateway, but ultimately there may be a connection, or there might be a certain protocol that we don't have that needs to be integrated. And so what we're finding is that IoT, in this sense, on the hardware side, is very customized, right? And whether you decide to do that on your own, that opens up, well, there's cost to that, right? Engineering costs and so forth. So what Vantron's approach has been for the last couple of years now is really providing you with a low amount of NRE, so making it very low risk, right? I think that proving the concept to your customers, or actually getting the product out to market, is of much more importance, in terms of being able to launch that product, right? Meaning that now I don't have to worry about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to a product that I may or may not know yet that it's going to work until I actually do something with the data. So that's where Vantron's coming into this, and we're providing a low NRE to get started, but also very minimal MOQs. And what we mean by that is you don't have to say, well, I need 10,000 units to be able to get to this price point. No, we can start you off on very small amounts, prototypes. Again, we want you to prove that concept and be successful. So that's really what we're enabling you to do here, is get the product that you need, the concept that you need, and be able to get that to market very quickly. And again, we have the full capabilities of custom OS development, whether it's Android, Windows, and Linux. All of that expertise resides within Vantron. So very little you need to do other than maybe some application development, but again, that is something that we can do for you as well. And again, if you look at kind of those two pictures I'm showing you there at the bottom of the products, and that's a very small sensor board that we do, all the way up to a full turnkey medical device, which you see there. So again, it's very much a focus on having long life cycle products, everything that we do. So everything that we make is going to be industrial temp, industrial grade, very robust, rugged type of products. Okay, so I wanted to share a couple applications with you and then kind of mention why ThingWorx is such an important partner for these. So in this system that we have here, we actually have a passenger counter that we use, a camera, a gateway. All of this, again, is all talking to each other. So here you have the passenger counter where there's Wi-Fi, you have an IP-based camera. All of this is then going back to the gateway. In addition, on this bus, you have some additional signage, which is going to be advertising whatever might be in the bus as well. Might show news, whatever that might be. Vantron has all that capability to make it a closed-loop system. But where it actually exits out now, if I want to monitor where that bus is, actually see how many passengers are there at a given point, maybe there's efficiency I'm going to run, some type of analytics on the bus itself, how much money has been taken, all of that then gets reported through the ThingWorx platform. So again, really having the agent running on that gateway sends that data back to a central point where it all aggregates, and actually now you have the analytic capabilities on the back end of that. So again, you have processing capabilities, and something like this would certainly be running a higher end Intel processor, or say a Freescale iDynamic 6. But this really gives you a good feel for adding or putting many different types of systems together, all for collecting data back at the central location. Okay. And the other one that we've had a lot of an area of success has been on the vending side. And what we're finding that now that vending is becoming, well, I can't tell how many times I go up to a vending machine and I never have any cash on me, so it's kind of pointless. I don't ever spend any money. So the idea, at least for the vending machines now, that two things have happened. One is they're finding that people just don't carry a lot of cash anymore, don't have change. So they want to make it where it's a cashless payment system. So adding this functionality is quite important. But also, there is the mandate to actually publish nutritional information as well. So everything that's in there is going to be basically cataloged and have some nutritional information around it. Now, when this particular customer came to us and said, hey, I really need all of these things together in one platform, that's essentially what we came to them and produced for them, was something that has NFC, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular. As you see there, there's a magstripe reader, as well as, so NFC is an important part because that's what's actually going to allow you to do cashless payment just by simply holding your phone up to that as well. So many different options for customers to pay now, which is great. You're just going to find that your vending machine is going to take in quite a bit more money simply now by having that ability to take different forms of payments. Okay, so that's really their problem, was they needed something extremely robust, but also at the same time with many different peripherals around that. So we were able to get that for them at a very attractive price point, but also the fact now is that data is going up to the cloud because they're actually doing real-time inventory management on this as well. So the fact that they have the cellular connectivity notifies the vending operators if they're needing to replenish or restock. But again, ThingWorx platform becomes a very important part of that because now it gives that data and centralizes it at a certain point for this type of customer as well. So again, these are just a couple of application examples I wanted to share with you before I dive maybe a little bit more into the next application I'm going to show you. But I wanted to kind of bring Kevin in on this as well, so that you can maybe discuss a bit more as far as what ThingWorx is bringing to this as well.
Excellent. So thank you, Derek. So first of all, what you folks have seen here is a pretty unique use case or a unique business case that Van puts forth. Application, they provide solution development. So we tend to see that this marketplace, the IoT marketplace, sort of stratifies. You have those who produce devices, you have middleware providers and enabling technology suites, and then you have application and solution developers and ISVs that sit on the top and deliver value. So what's somewhat unique about Vantron is that they exist at sort of all points in the spectrum. From the device, through the manufacturing, the packaging, the hardening, all the way through solution development and design, and then deployment and maintenance. So, the question, of course, is where does ThingWorx fit in here? And what's great is that working with such a flexible and multifaceted partner like Vantron is that we actually have somebody who in the field shows the flexibility of the ThingWorx tool set. So when Derek does his deep dive shortly, he's going to go in and show you what ThingWorx components were used in what places and where we are in the stack and the value that we're bringing. But he's also, in describing these use cases that they've implemented, shown you the various use cases wherein ThingWorx fits at the edge. So in the cloud, of course, you read all of our material, you hear about ThingWorx in the market, and you hear about application enablement, or application development, solution development. Of course, that's bread and butter. But for an IoT platform, table stakes require that you have some sort of connectivity answer, whether that be integration with existing device clouds, or whether that be through partners or through providing edge toolkits or devices. Where ThingWorx comes into play is effectively in all of these spaces. But what you're seeing here with both the bus gateway scenario and the point of sale terminal for the vending scenario is two completely different ways to deploy ThingWorx technology. So we possess both toolkits, which are as small as you need them, everything from an embedded microcontroller up to a full stack OS on a purpose-built PC that Derek was referring to for some of the industrial customers. We offer these with a small memory footprint that sort of simplifies and streamlines all the connectivity, message formatting, parsing, TLS and SSL negotiation, duty cycling for communication, am I cellular, am I Wi-Fi, when do I speak. We sort of encapsulate all that within our toolkits. And then when you're talking about the bus scenario, we offer our Edge microserver, which is a robust, effectively a server component that runs at the edge that provides a proxy in both directions, a proxy for devices at the edge to speak through the Edge microserver up into the cloud, speaking to ThingWorx, speaking to your CRM system, or whatever back-end business infrastructure you have. And then for the business system in the cloud to speak through the Edge microserver to the devices. He was talking about cameras and GPS for the gathering location of the buses, but there also needs to update signage to display the route that's on the bus to indicate that there's a service problem. We have the capability with both the toolkit and the Edge microserver to send data down to the Edge, and through the Edge microserver you can actually then send that information or that payload onto other devices operating in that ecosystem. So from a ThingWorx perspective, Derek has done a great job of showing completely different use cases which show off different facets of our connectivity strategy. And as he walks through the examples, a bit of a deep dive to see how and Vantron value proposition sort of ties very cleanly in with the set of enabling technology offerings that the ThingWorx platform bring to bear. So Derek, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Kevin. And I think that definitely the value, Kevin, is really where you were mentioning that is we could bring a lot of different pieces together and do something with that data now, right? Like you were saying, update signage, whatever that, maybe take camera images. But what we're finding is, again, I think Kevin really expanded on it really well, was the fact that the integration, CRM integration, is going to be paramount, and we're starting to see a lot of opportunities with ServiceMax. So now, again, you're generating work orders from whatever device. Say you had a escalator or some type of device that was out there, and you weren't sure what actually failed on the product, right? So you send the guy out. He probably has to go out and assess it. Then goes out, gets the part. Well, wouldn't it be nice to already have all of that work order created for him, that when he goes to the site, it's already done? So again, the idea here with the CRM integration is we're now improving efficiency, but also increasing that customer satisfaction. So it is really a next step for how we're going to take these devices, and Vantron is rapidly building that capability, simply just having the connection with Salesforce and ServiceMax. So again, just really high level here, just giving you guys a very good idea of where this is going, and certainly what the art of what's possible. Okay, so I wanted to actually get into a real life example that we're doing right now, because I think it is very applicable to today's discussion, and really just shows the capability that we have to get a proof of concept, but ultimately a production application to market. So Senko came to us with a problem of really, they already had a great product of security monitoring, but what they were finding is there's an acceptable loss prevention in most places, but really what they wanted then to expand on was, now we want to see what devices were actually being picked up or taken or setting alarms, which ones are apt to really have issues. Obviously new products, but there's always going to be some other products that maybe they weren't even considering. So having analytics is an important part of their strategy moving forward. So being able then to tell what devices are being lifted, for how long, having all that historical data is very important. So they came to us and really needed a very quick to market solution here, because of the fact that we just didn't have a ton of time to actually create a custom piece of hardware. So we started with one of our gateway solutions, and it matched very well to what they were looking for. So again, really the cellular connectivity, having Wi-Fi, Ethernet as opportunities would really make it very important here. So this really aggregating and bringing all of these pieces together, and actually having a router as part of this was a big request on their end. So really the piece that here that was getting the data up to a location where they could view this, that was really the important piece to that. And that's, again, a very integral part of our strategy is implementing ThingWorx. Now that we've done several applications, we have those building blocks in place, and that's really where the holy grail of all this is going, is that once you have these M2M or IoT apps already pre-configured and built, it makes it very easy to kind of rinse and repeat for that next step, right? And I think really does differentiate who's collecting what and who's actually analyzing. So on the back end, whether it's the analytics side, or again, if I'm doing CRM integration, that's where you're going to define or differentiate yourselves from just saying, hey, I have data, now I can actually do something a lot more with it, right? So that's ultimately what Senko is going to be planning out, how they get to market with all the analytics. So I wanted to kind of put the pieces together for you as far as the building blocks of how we did this. So we took one of our TI gateways. They needed something fairly low power, but also didn't need a ton of horsepower behind it, because they're not running display or anything like that. It's simply just a data aggregator is the way you look at that. So what we took was ThingWorx C SDK, integrated that into our tool chain so that we can actually create a way to run and compile the binaries that we're going to store on the gateway itself. So what we actually do then is, in Ubuntu or whatever version of Linux you're using, you would simply just integrate that C SDK, compile your code, run that, and actually create a binary, which then you would FTP or load onto the gateway itself. And from there, I'm going to show you in the next slide of the connectivity piece, but you see here the end result would be that I have an application now running with data coming in. So again, the very important piece to this, though, is now we're able to build a lot of that logic, or have a lot of those APIs, hooks, through the ThingWorx SDK, which I really just call out certain events, certain variables, whatever that might be, and then put that up in a very usable application. So this is all really possible because of what ThingWorx has at a very low level with their SDK. They have different levels of their SDKs which you can use, but for this particular one, we use the ThingWorx C SDK. Now, the really neat part about this application you're seeing, or this example, we actually do share this on the ThingWorx site for actually how we actually did this. So you'll have a full guide, a document that takes you through step by step as far as what we did to do that. So it's part of the ThingWorx partner program, which will detail a lot more as far as what I'm showing here, because this is, again, a very high-level overview. Now, the next step you need to do beyond that is, once I have my my application already done, I basically have. So once I have the application done, excuse me, the idea now is, how do I connect up to the server or a location? Well, you have an app key, right? And I want to show you this in detail, because this is critical to actually getting that data to a point. I have the server IP that I set up. In this case, this is Vantron hosting the ThingWorx platform on our micro IoT server. I specify a certain server port. In most cases, a lot of people use different ports, but we use something at the higher end. And again, you have a specific app key for your program, so that app key does need to match. And then you would call it a thing name, whatever you wanted to identify that as, and then whatever other functionality you wanted to build into that. You also could do longitude, latitude, location, as well as the serial port setup. But ultimately, once all of these settings are configured, I then create a WebSocket and I run the actual program that I compiled. So I have a settings file, and I also have a run script that will then create that WebSocket for me. So again, it's a very high-level overview, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a good feel for what it takes to develop that application, because it is relatively quick to be up and running using the ThingWorx SDK along with our platform. So it is a really key piece to getting that connectivity piece, again, without a lot of the frustration in IoT. A lot of that functionality and APIs are already built in for us.
Yeah, and Derek, if I can jump in there real quick. He mentioned the use of a WebSocket there. So for those who are not as tech savvy, or at least not in the granularity of connection style, a WebSocket is a standard web HTTP connection that is persistent. So it allows you to maintain, for the duration of that WebSocket connection, you have bidirectional communication that can happen instantaneously. So while you're connected, if you want to interface with this device to send a payload, to trigger an alarm, to do whatever it is at the edge, you're doing so with only latency between you, and only network latency between you and the device itself. We can also support traditional transactional HTTP web requests, but the use of the WebSocket is our most popular because of its responsiveness. So back to you, Derek.
Right. Yeah, good point, Kevin. And I mean, and the important piece there, it's persistent, right? So if that WebSocket is lost because cellular connectivity is lost or Wi-Fi connectivity, it's going to reestablish that socket. It's always going to phone home, so to speak, right? Where we don't have to then worry about the device falling down or data loss, right? Because the fact is, it's always going to be reconnecting via this WebSocket. Okay, and here you can see a little bit more. You can actually go to the marketplace. This is a link to our gateway along with the EMS guide, so that you can see step by step how we actually accomplish this in a relatively short amount of time. So it is. I did want to mention that it is a ThingWorx certified device, so it is capable of fully running the application. Now, the only thing that you would then, the discussion becomes is, well, who hosts it and where would that go? Well, that's something I'll discuss at the end of this webinar, because I think what we're presenting is a very high value, low risk type of application here, where we take care of the hosting initially for you as well. So again, I think it really it's reducing those barriers to entry for you guys, that I don't have to go out and spend tons of money just to get up and running for an IoT platform. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the example, and I'll actually show you real time what's happening here. I want to show a couple things. One is the composer, as well as the application itself. And so let me just switch screens here for everyone. But this is really the heart of the application is understanding where all my assets are across the world, and being able then to drill into that location, whether it's in this case, there's going to be several retail locations throughout the world, where I can then see my product or the products out there that are being monitored. So again, if I want to take an aggregation of all my iPhones that are out there, all my Samsung Galaxies, whatever it might be, that's all my inventory that now I'm running analytics on. So I would then see, you know, here in real time what's actually happening with the data dump. Here, this is a historical piece on the you know, the number of devices being lifted at any moment, as well as some examples of maybe what the store would look like, or however you want to do that. But again, the ThingWorx platform is very flexible on how you set up this mashup. Okay, so let me just take you then to the actual application itself. So you can see here, this one's right outside of Chicago there, and I'm actually seeing data real time, so I know the device is online. Right now, you can see each of the devices that are registered to the gateway itself, but this right now we could actually change. So if I wanted to say, oh, but I know that because this is my serial number for the radio, as an example, I want to maybe code that as a let's call it a Samsung Galaxy S6, because I have one. I really do like it, so why not? Let's see here. Now, what I'm taking you in is the actual mashup in Composer. So what I'm doing is I'm directing the website here to go right into a server location. Again, this is the Vantron server, which will then allow me to bring up Composer. So again, if you remember from what we were talking about early on in the application or in the discussion, the actual server itself is running the ThingWorx platform. So everything that I need is through the Vantron hardware. Okay, so it's an important piece because the you really have very little to do. Okay, let me just create another link here. Okay, so then I go to port 8443 where the application sits, right there. And I'll close that guy down there. No, it's not wanting to cooperate right now.
The demo gods are cruel.
All right, we'll go back to the application here. For some reason, it's the web connection is, my Wi-Fi is a little slow. Anyway, so the idea, though, at least, is what I was going to show you inside Composer, which you just saw a brief example of, the lift place. I would actually go in and change that serial number in Composer. So in Composer, I can actually create all this on the fly, right? I can actually do this real time, so that your application stays as is, and you can be making changes from a remote location, always updating the application. So once the application is deployed, it's consistently capable of being updated, right? And I think that's an important point, because being able to do this real time, having the ThingWorx platform running on the server, allows you then to easily manage your applications out there, right? I don't have to go in and modify different locations and so forth. Everything is going to be residing on the on that server, because again, all the devices point back to that server, and this is what I'm pulling up on the server side of things. So this is exactly what you're seeing right here, is the device aggregation from all over the country and all over the world. Okay. So let me go back to the presentation there. Okay. So I think a big part of this is how do we get started, right? And getting started is a big part of proving the concept, and again, making it relatively low risk for you, right? Because again, it's very easy to see how the cost can escalate. When you're talking about server licenses, hosting, being able to have custom hardware. I just think it becomes very overwhelming to get a IoT product, or let's say proof of concept, to market without looking at a tremendous amount of expenditure. So Vantron, our expertise is in lowering those barriers for you. Okay, so the idea, at least here now, is that you're going to be able to get started with hardware, with an application, with the server running the application or running the platform, all for a relatively low amount. So what we're proposing to be able to do this proof of concept, Vantron is going to provide 5 gateways. And when we say 5 gateways, we're talking either we can run high-end Intel that have full-blown Linux, Ubuntu Linux, or we can actually run one of our TI gateways that simply just runs a very stripped-down version of Linux. The difference between the two, one will actually have more of a user interface. The other one's really meant just to be a data aggregator. But both are fully capable of running the ThingWorx platform, right? You're not really bound by one or the other. It really is dependent on the application. Certainly one gateway does have a little more cost than the other one, so that also becomes a factor in what do I want to deploy. But both are going to be cellular certified with AT&T and Verizon. So you have Wi-Fi, you have Ethernet, Bluetooth. You have all of that connectivity options for you as well. So say, for example, later on down the line, you wanted to add a Zigbee radio or a 900 megahertz radio. You have that capability as well with this gateway, with either one, I should say. But again, the fundamental difference between the two, one's for a higher end application, one's for lower end. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Now, the really neat part about this and the critical piece here, what Vantron is going to provide, is we will do the application development for you as well. So this will include the ThingWorx server license. And if you look at what the server license costs are and so forth, you're looking at a 1-year commitment and a certain amount. What we're going to do is be able to prove that concept, because we have a number of licenses we work with ThingWorx on to be able to do this, right? And now the fact is, you can actually use that license to be able then to get a product or a proof of concept up and running for at least 6 months to even 1 year. And that's a critical part, because again, that's just one less barrier to entry, so to speak, that comes down, because you're literally looking at a minimal amount of cost to do something like this. And most importantly, now we have the ability to host the data for you with our micro IoT server. All right, now that's critical here, because now I don't have to then worry about going and signing a hosting agreement with anyone. I don't have to worry about where that data is going. I know it's going to all be centralized within Vantron, or that's something that you can actually have on site at your office if you'd like. So it just gives you that capability of controlling that data now, right? That data doesn't have to go somewhere where then you have to manage all of your hosting fees and so forth. Vantron will provide that for you, because again, the key glue or the key element in all this is actually having the ThingWorx platform running on the server. So that's a very critical piece, because ThingWorx has solved that issue of having something on-premise versus something that is up in the cloud, so to speak, right? And very few offer something like that, right? I mean, coming from Digi and having that part of it as well, they've really solved that, having a device on premise very gracefully with their platform. So again, Vantron is going to provide all of this for you for a sub 20K price point. And the piece that we would want to understand of how we're going to create that application for you is simply just understanding what data elements you have as part of this, and then simply we can then create that application proof of concept. Now, a production application is something much different. It requires more of like a phase 1, even a phase 2 approach to this. But we have that expertise and the capability then to get you all the way up to, say, if I want to integrate into the ServiceMax platform, Salesforce, that becomes another discussion as well. This here simply just gets you started of being able to see the data, reproducible, and then having something that you can actually go off and prove to your customers. So in a nutshell, this really gives you a terrific opportunity to explore IoT with, again, very low risk and very minimal upfront costs, because you're also getting hardware as part of this process as well. And really, that's all I have to say. Kind of, what, again, very high level, showing different elements here. There's a lot that goes into this, but again, we've shown you that we have hardware all the way up into the integration piece, as far as everything in between that part of it as well. So you really do get a full turnkey IoT solution from Vantron. With that said, I want to spend a little time answering some questions here. So I know there's probably some that are out there, and I want to get to those. So why don't we jump into that, Lauren, if that works for you?
Yep, that works for me. Thank you for this great presentation. We've got a couple questions that have come in so far, but certainly we welcome more people to keep asking while we answer these first couple. So the first one is kind of a quick answer question, one that we just got in that says, "Hi Derek, does Vantron have operations in Europe?"
Yes, we do. So we actually have, through distributors in Europe, the capability of going through them if you'd like. Depending on the opportunity that you're looking for, we certainly can discuss others as well. Right now, we kind of have one central location for our distribution network, but yeah, we're certainly always looking for more ways to expand.
Great. So another question that we received is, what mechanisms do you employ to perform device management for devices in the field?
Yeah, and that's really where ThingWorx becomes very flexible, because what we do, once you have that device connected in the field, right, how do I know, a really good example of this is on cellular, right? So if I don't get a static IP on cellular, that IP address constantly changes. And it becomes frustrating because now I don't have that ability to actually connect to that device. Well, that's where ThingWorx is very flexible and very, very important, because I can create custom scripts that communicate with a gateway to give me that IP address, right? So in this case, I would send myself an SMS message with the new IP address in the example, or say I wanted to update firmware, right? All of that functionality is added within the Composer platform. So then each of those, I just push new firmware to the device, or I get an IP address. Maybe I want to change certain settings. You have that ability to access that device remotely, because ThingWorx maintains the heartbeat to that device, so that I always know with the IP address and I can always manage it. Now, if it's offline, obviously that becomes a bigger problem, but those are things that you would know, because ThingWorx platform, again, will tell you because of the heartbeat if that device is still alive or not.
Yeah, and I would add another layer on top there, that we do have connectivity management. Obviously, we can tell whether a device is currently communicating, how long it's been since it's communicated. We have the capability of triggering off the event of whether something is communicating or not communicating. But there are also issues related to identity, to sort of transitive identity management, the fact that you may have a tracker or a point of sale that is associated with a particular piece of equipment, and that part of the provisioning flow of that device going out into the field may be spooling up the device itself, having it identify the physical asset to which it's connected, and within ThingWorx we can manage all of those associations. We also have the ability, actually it's required, that you use an application key, sort of an API key for each device. Now you can share them across devices, although it's not recommended, and we have the ability for any given device to repeal its application key so that it can no longer speak to the platform. So in terms of the lifecycle management of provisioning, enabling, and then retiring or disabling a device, within ThingWorx we do have hooks for each part of that life cycle to be able to say, yes, I can talk to this, I can allow this device to talk to my platform, this device is online or is not online, and to Derek's point, you can use this to trigger firmware updates, or basically any business logic in the system. So while it doesn't constitute device management in sort of the MDM style, which is everything through firmware provisioning and a very exhaustive list that could go from kitting to software configuration at the cellular level, we do have a fair amount of capability to manage the IoT connected asset in a device management sense.
Great. Another question that we got was, what experience do you have working with municipalities, and what are some application examples you've seen?
Yeah, so great question.
I assume that's directed at Derek. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So sorry, it was on mute there. I had a good conversation with myself, by the way. So what I was going to mention is the municipalities. Yeah, it's a great opportunity because we work with different elements, mainly in the transportation side of things, is where we've seen our success. So, for example, if there's here in California, the Highway Patrol wanted to always have tow trucks on standby, and they wanted to actually see where they were going throughout their routes, right? So what we actually put in was a black box, so to speak, but knowing what their locations were, so they can react quicker, they can dispatch. All of that was important because, again, that was something that specifically the Transportation Authority, one of them in Southern California, wanted to add this as part of that, and again, with cooperation with the Highway Patrol. So our devices then report all that data up into the cloud where their location is, who's quicker, but they were also using that as a way because the tow truck guys would tend to slack off, or some other guys would certainly just disappear. So having that data was important for them, not just for monitoring how quick they could dispatch, but also to make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So yes, the municipalities is certainly that we put a lot of focus on because of the fact that they require ruggedized type of boxes, but having cellular is a key, really key aspect to that.
Okay, another question that we got was, for developers, one of the biggest challenges is responding to changing requirements from customers and stakeholders. How flexible are the solutions once you've built them?
Yeah, no, that's I agree with whoever mentioned that one right there, because it just seems like it's never good enough, or there are always changes, but that's important here, right? Because I think to understand what ThingWorx is able to do, yeah, for some reason, again, I have terrible Wi-Fi connectivity here, so I was going to show you within the application, with their changing requirements, I can change a lot of these things on the fly because, again, wherever that application is being hosted, the ThingWorx platform I talked about, whether it's through ThingWorx micro server or actually you allow Vantron to do that, having that platform in a location that you can access and be able to do updates on the fly is critical to this. So now, as your customers' requirements change, you can change along with that simply just by pushing updates through Composer, but also through the Vantron Gateway, you can add functionality on the fly as well, because the Vantron Gateway will allow you to run customized scripts through Python, Linux, C, C++, however you want to write these. The gateway itself is very much a flexible box. So it's not simply just, I have only these connectivity options. I have a lot of flexibility in writing scripts with Python and so forth on the gateway, but also change that on the fly in the ThingWorx Composer. So as as customer requirements change, you can change right along with that, and that's really critical to this in real time. So I'm working with the customer I mentioned, the retail customer, that as they make changes, we're able to do that on the fly. Hey, change this ID. They're able to see that as we're collaborating. So that's what's really neat about all this, is you can see the real-time changes happening. Now, again, that all depends on the scope and the functionality needed, right? If it's a simple fix, then that's great. But if it's a 1 to 2 week type of work in progress, then those are all things you have to kind of scope out. But yeah, really neat stuff.
Great. Another question is, can you reveal a bit of the security controls that could be implemented?
I'm not.
So I'll dive in a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so I'll dive in from at least a architecture standpoint. I mean, if the security is really solid, then his answer is going to be, of course not. But I think we have a lot of capabilities in the ThingWorx suite. At the edge, of course, we have the application key, which I talked about in terms of defining which assets can legally speak. We do have the ability to use certificate-based authentication, in that we're using a client cert on each device to assert its identity. Now, this has long legs, frankly, in the hardware root of trust movement. We see this with our partners in Wind River and coming along with some of the other chip and module providers, where a device's unique ID is sort of gospel. In order to prevent a potential malicious exploit along the lines of what we saw in Europe about a year and a half ago with the BMW remote unlocking exploit, where you have the same cert being distributed to countless client endpoints, allowing one to encrypt the traffic and execute an imposter attack. We provide the ability to have unique identities for our devices from our C toolkit, our Java toolkit, our EMS, that can be used to help prevent that sort of imposter attack. We also have on the cloud side an extensive and granular user privileging mechanism based on groups, where you can define who can see which assets. These can be dynamically defined so that a person who is working a service shift overnight has access to see a device from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. but has no capabilities to see a device beyond that. We even have the capability of having conditional visibility, wherein a device that's in an error state might be visible to a service tech, but a device in a healthy operating state would not be, or where certain operations are legal against a device which is in, let's take for a medical device, which is in a state where it is not connected to a patient. It can receive firmware updates, it can receive configuration changes, etc. But when connected to a patient, it has no capabilities and refuses any inbound instructions or queues them up for a later date. So, that's a quick answer, but the security story is well integrated and rather rich. So if there are follow-up detailed questions, you can send them along and we'll address them.
Great. Another question we got was, could you give us some ideas of cost for the bus example, or say a typical deployment?
Yeah, I apologize for being vague on that, but I think it really depends on the data points that you're looking at and so forth. What complexity you want to add in there. Now, we certainly can prove the concept for you, right, with the hardware, the server, and the application itself, and that we try and keep very minimal, under 20 grand. So again, we get you started to a point, and if there is some scope outside of that, as an example, where you need some different data points and so forth, those are all things that we can address for you through a quick discovery call. Generally, what we like to do on this is have a discovery call, what we consider a phase 0, just to lay everything out, just to make sure that, again, the proof of concept is going to meet the functionality, what you're looking for. And if there's anything beyond that, then we would certainly scope that for you. But again, we're allowing you to take ownership of a server license, the ThingWorx server license, for a 6 to 12 month period as part of that 20 or less K cost for you. So again, I don't mean to be vague on that, but simply put, it really does come down to the complexity of the application.
Great. I have two last ones. We're coming up on the last minute, but these are great ones. And if anyone else has further questions, you can continue to ask them, and we can take them offline afterward. So for the second to last, what is the process for provisioning sensors and gateways?
Process for provisioning. So good point. I think that's a great question, because a lot of the times, well, how do I get my M2M device up on the cellular network? Two things for that. One, we can get you in touch with an MVNO. Well, actually, three things. Because one, you may have an account with Verizon already. No, you can't go into the Verizon store and activate it, but it would be through Verizon's business services. They'll allow you to actually register that device on the network. An MVNO simply just pulls data together. They are connected closely with all the carriers, so they're able to bring very attractive data plans for you for a small number of devices. I think once you reach critical mass, have larger volumes, going to Verizon directly is good for that. But also, we can actually handle some of that requirements up front for you as well. So Vantron itself has that capability of, once we understand how much data you're sending through, of being able to get data plans for you as well as part of that. So we would provision all that for you. We'd actually get that activated on the network. We are doing that for several of our customers. And it's a nice value add because, again, it's just lowers that additional barrier of things I have to figure out. So yes, there is a monthly cost as part of that, but it simply allows you to deploy without having any concerns that it will register up on the network. So to kind of give you an example, there's several pieces that we can do for you on the mobile side or on the cellular side to get provision on the network.
Great, and the last question that we'll take now. So the last one says, how do I get started with a proof of concept? Yeah,
so it's a great question because I think what we want to do is really just have that early engagement, what again I call that phase 0 approach, where we just sit down, have a maybe 30-minute, hour-long discussion on the phone as far as what it takes to create that application for you, and then we can simply be able to then provide you with a detailed quote of everything that you're getting, how we're going to host that for you, and really how we want to see those data points. If we need to include cellular as part of that as well, that's an additional step that we can also factor in there. But yeah, I would say reach out to Lauren. She'll get you in contact with me, and we'll go from that point with let's say a 30-minute to 1-hour discussion as far as maybe the application you're looking for. So really great question, because now we can start that early engagement and just understand your application a little more in depth, and again, lower that barrier, lower that entry for IoT simply by giving you all the tools that you need to start with.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again, Derek and Kevin, for hosting this discussion today. I hope everyone got some great value out of this. And again, if you have any more questions, you can feel free to reach out to us even after the presentation's over. And we'll be sending out the recording webcast as soon as it's available. So thank you, everyone.